Today we are going to look at lesson 12-2. So again, we're in volume 2. We're on pages 449 to 451 today. So you want your book open and you want to follow along. If you don't have it, go ahead and get that now. Today we're going to look at fractions and decimals using number lines. So this tends to get a little more involved and somewhat tricky. So make sure you're paying close attention, make sure you have your book and it's open and you are in a nice quiet spot today so you can really focus and make sure you're following along in this video. So we have 3 number lines here and we have to name the fractions or the decimals of each lettered point on the number lines. So let's first look at this number line right here. Let's call it like number line 1, okay? Well, the first thing I want to do is locate the 0 and the 1 because that tells me this number line is representing one whole figure right here from 0 to 1. That's one whole. And I need to first count to see how many equal parts did they divide that into. So I begin here and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this number line right here, all of these amounts represented on the number line are referring to tenths, right? Because they've divided this whole figure into 10 equal parts. So when I look at point A, I see it's just 1 over. So that would be equivalent to 1/10. So that's point A on my number line. Now, written as a decimal, I'm going to go over here just above it. And I know that tenth refers to the place value right after the decimal point. Now, when I look at B, if this was 1/10, this would be 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10. So B written as a fraction is 5/10. And I know that writing that as a decimal would be equivalent to the decimal point and then the number 5 to represent 5/10. If that's 5, this would be 6/10, 7/10. So writing it as a decimal. And then as a fraction, it would be 7/10. Now let's look at number line 2. So first thing I notice is that there's no number here and the whole number starts over here. That's kind of strange. They did that to try to trick me. But I know because I am such a great, strong mathematician that I'm going to look between these 2 whole numbers because that's where I always begin. And I'm going to count the number of marks between this whole number and this whole number to see how many equal parts they've divided it into. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we are still working with tenths. That's excellent. So now I can see that this is the whole number 1. So if I'm working with tenths, it's almost like I've got to backtrack to figure out D, right? Because it's less than one whole. So for example, this would be equivalent to 10/10 right here at the number 1. So this one right here would be 9/10 and this one 8/10. So letter D right here, they tried to trick me, but I know that it's equivalent to 7/10. I can also represent that as a decimal with a decimal point and the number 7, 7/10. So now let's look at E and F. Well, if this is one whole, then that would be the same as saying 1 and 1/10, 1 and 2/10. So E would be written as the whole number 1 because there's one whole figure and 1/10. If I'm going kind of quickly, you can pause this video and you can play it over if you need to at any time. So again, because this decimal point comes after the number 1, it is written as that mixed number 1 and 1/10. If I'm going to write that as a decimal, it would be written as 1 and 1/10. So here it is as a decimal, and here it is as a fraction. Now let's look at F on the number line. If that's 1 and 1/10, this would be 1 and 2/10, 1 and 3/10, 1 and 4/10, 1 and 5/10, 1 and 6/10, 1 and 7/10. Oops, I did something wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess I skipped a point somewhere. Oh, no, you know what I did? I hope you guys caught that. 1 1/10 would be this first one. I goofed up right here. This would be 1 2/10. You're probably watching the video saying, yeah, Mrs. Body, gee. There you go, 1 2/10. So this would be 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, and 9/10. So 1 9/10. If I were going to write it as a decimal, it would be written 1 9/10. So there's the decimal, there's the mixed number. Let's look at the last number line. I'm going to write in a different color because I feel like they're kind of getting jumbled together. So now on this last one, let me zoom in so the others are kind of out of your way. Again, I'm first going to look at this whole number, 3, and this whole number, 4. They're kind of like your anchor points where you begin. And I'm going to count to see how many marks are between. So I start here, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. They're working with tenths again. Of course they are. So when I look at point G, let's talk about G on the number line here. If I'm going between 3 and 4, that would mean there's 3 whole figures, right? And then my fraction would be 3. This would be 3 1/10, 3 2/10. And now written as a decimal, that would be 3 2/10. Let's look at point H on our number line. If this was 3 1/2, this would be 3, 4, 5, 6. So this would be equivalent to 3 6/10, and written as a decimal, that would be 3 6/10. That's how we would read it. Now let's look at letter I. I'm going to write it right here. So now we've crossed over into a new whole figure, right? And I can count, if I counted right, this should still be 10 equal parts between 4 and 5. Let's count just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It is. And now let's look here. Well, I know before I even begin, 4 is my whole number because I'm between 4 and 5. And now let's see what the fraction is. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10. 4 4/10 written as a decimal, that would look just like this. 4 4/10. Now let's go to the bottom of the page. I see another question here. Is the name for point B above different from the name for point B on the number line below? So I guess they're talking about this number line right here and this number line right here. And specifically, they are talking about point B on this number line, which we said was 5/10. And then they want to know if it's the same as this number line, point B. Well, just like we did on those number lines at the top, we first have to look at the whole number 0 and 1. And we're going to count between our 2 anchor points here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is tenths, and point B was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5/10. So to answer their question, no, it is not different. No, not different. The number line may look larger and the space between may look larger, but it still represents the same point on the number line. We can just see that this one's a little bit smaller. The spaces are like squished together closer, and this one, the spaces are spread a little further apart, but they're still the same decimal, same fraction. Let's take a look back here. This video is a little bit longer. These videos on decimals are going to just be a little bit longer, so bear with me. Let's look at this example. In long track speed skating, each lap is 4/10 of a kilometer. During practice, Elizabeth skated 3 7/75 kilometers. Draw a number line to show 4/10 and 3 7/75. So we have 2 different numbers we have to represent. One is tenths, one is hundredths. Now let's look. First, they've gone through and helped us to create a number line to represent 4/10. So again, I would draw my number line, and if I'm working with tenths, that tells me I need to create from 0 to 1, 10 equal parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And 4/10 is going to go right here on the 4th mark. And again, it's written 0 and 4/10. Now let's look at this one. There's actually 2 different ways to do this, guys. I really need you to focus on this part. Stay with me. You can show 3 and 75/100ths on a number line divided into tenths, or you can show it dividing into hundredths. So let's look. When I say tenths, you have to put the point halfway because you're kind of thinking what's between 70 and 80, right? And halfway would be that 75. So that's what they're doing here. They started with 3 and they've gone up to 4, but they've divided it into 3 and 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 3 and 4/10, 3 and 5/10, 3 and 6/10, 3 and 7/10, 3 and 8/10. And they put that point right between 3 and 7/10 and 3 and 8/10. Now, why did they do that? Because it's 3 and 75/100ths. Well, guys, we remember that 3 and 7/10 is really the same as 70/100ths. So we know that 75 comes between 70 and 80, just like we said right up here. I know that's a little confusing. This part's going to take practice. On the second number line, what they did, they started off at 3 and 7/10, right? Kind of like you used over here and here. And then they went 3 and 71/100ths, 72, 73/100ths, 74, 75/100ths. So on this example, they had an exact location. This is a little confusing. Again, this is just going to take some practice. But I think for many of you, if you're relating it to money, it'll make it a little easier to remember and to understand. Let's take a look at this example down here. It's asking us which decimal shown on the number line is not in the correct location. Well, again, first, we want to start with 0 and 1, right? Or you can look at 1 and 2. Whichever whole numbers you're given, it could be like between 7 and 8. As long as you have 2 whole numbers you can look at, you'll be fine. So now we need to see how many equal parts they've been divided into. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So again, into tenths. So when we look, this would be 1/10. So that decimal is correct. This would be 2/10. This would be 3, 4, 5/10. So this one is correct. This one would be 6. This one would be 7. Here's your incorrect one. It is not 9/10. That would be over here. So 9/10 is incorrect. It should be, oops. Let me try just writing that over. 7/10. Let's take a look at the others though, just to make sure there aren't any more. So I guess this would be 1 and 1/10, 1 and 2/10, 1 and 3/10. So that's correct. 1 and 4/10, 1 and 5/10, 1 and 6/10, 1 and 7/10, 1 and 8/10. That's correct. 1 and 9/10, and then 2. Perfect. So today, you guys are going to complete a few on your own. Let's look at just one last problem before I set you guys free to get started. So let's say you have to locate a number, right, on the number line, 45/100ths. And now they've given you 2 starting points. So you're going between 40 and 50, and it looks like you have 10 parts here. I'm just guessing, but it looks like it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have to know in our brains that that one would be 42, or 41, 42, 43, and we have to find 45/100ths. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right here, and that would be equivalent to your 45/100ths, right? Let's look at this example. You have to name the decimal and the fraction for each point on the number line. So when we look here, it looks like we've gone from 0 to 1, and they've split this into 10 equal parts, and they've even marked like halfway or 5/10. So E would be equivalent to 6/10, and we know that decimal is written as 6/10 or 0.6. Now let's go right over here and let's look at H. So if this is 1 5/10, then this would be 1 1, 1 2, 1 3, 1 4/10. So H equals 1 4/10, or written as the decimal 1 4/10. Letter F, it looks like now we're going in hundredths. Do you see that? Now we have 2 digits to the right of the decimal point. So it looks like here we have between 30 and 35 hundredths. So this would be like 31, 32, 33. So 1 33 hundredths. And if we were going to write that as a fraction, it would be 1 33 hundredths. And then the last one, we have 35, so this would be 36, 37, 38, and 39. 1 39 hundredths, and written as a decimal would be 1.39. I know that was a long video. Again, it's just going to take some practice. There's just a lot that goes into decimals and understanding them on number lines. We will meet at 2 o'clock to go over these questions, and you have 2 exit ticket questions.